Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Purple Hyacinth podcast on Story Tinker called Bitter Burial. And today we have Laura and Firedancer.
Hello.
Hi, this is Laura.
So, Bitter Burial is referring to the burial of Harvey. And we start out with a very somber scene. And fittingly, the weather matches the atmosphere. It's cold and it's snowing. It's gray. And we start out with tree branches, bare tree branches, a sign of death. And we have the shadows of the police officers carrying his coffin. Very somber. Everyone's dressed up. Lauren, I think, is one of the pallbearers. Maybe, can't tell from right away. And we have Will, and we have Kim, all looking very serious. They put his coffin down. We have people standing. We have somebody, we see a cane, and then we see a salute. And his coffin, and the Tristan is giving a speech. Very sad, very somber. There's a priest nearby. And then we see the hands of somebody, an older person, and his hands are trembling. Kim, her face is down. She has her hand in her hat. And then we see the king coming down, and we see somebody putting his leg down, like falling down to his knees. And he says, "Oh, Harvey, my dearest grandson." So it's Harvey's grandfather. And he looks devastated. There's an image of him just clutching his cane, leaning down, and his shadow, and says, "Why? I told you." And he's just crying. His tears are streaming down his face. He's in agony. His mouth is open. "I told you didn't need to try so hard. This is all my fault. How am I supposed to make it up to you now? Harvey, I'm so sorry." And Lauren is looking just appalled at this. And Firedancer, you can continue.
Wait, before we continue, sorry for going so fast.
Yeah.
So just to back it up to the beginning, when the pallbearers are carrying Harvey's casket, we can't see anyone's face at first. Like, we can see the outline, their profiles, and we can see like the outlines of their heads and stuff. But we can't see Lauren's face. We can't see Will's face. We see a little bit of Kim's face. And I think this is to indicate, obviously, it's the somber, serious nature of the moment, but also I think they're all trying to hide themselves from each other, just because it's kind of a vulnerable state to be in grief like that with each other. So they can be like in solidarity with each other, but also, it's not something that they're probably used to sharing with each other, that vulnerable sadness. But it also could be a way of showing like them marching ahead. Like, we can't see really hardly anything of Lauren's face. We just see like the back of her head, and then a little bit more of Will's face, and then Kim, we see a little bit more of her face. So it's like we're the passerby as we're watching them march forward. And then as the grandpa is like overcome with emotion and overcome with his grief, that panel where he says, "Oh, Harvey, my dearest grandson," like, I almost started crying as I thought about the last funeral that I went to, and how alone I felt, and how, like, even though there was a lot of people around with me, just how much I missed the person that I was grieving. Sorry. This is really affecting me. It's like really beautiful. It shows that even though there's a lot of people around him, they're all blurred out, and he just feels so sad for the person that he never expected to die. And his shadow is super long, and it just is very forlorn. Sorry.
No need to be sorry.
Sorry. No, I also find it, I like the fact that throughout Harvey's arc, we've seen him like he cares very dearly about his grandpa, and because he's like, I have to work hard, I have to be strong for my grandpa. So he clearly cares about his grandpa very much. And then we see here the feeling is very much reciprocated, and they have a very strong bond, it seems, and it's just that much more just a blow to the chest. And then it also says that, like, questions why Harvey went to the Phantom Scythe in the first place. Like, it's not that he had no one, he had strong family bonds, it seems. But maybe it could have been because of those family bonds that he went to maybe help out with money, maybe supplies, anything. Like, it kind of gives him a layer to his character.
Yeah, because we don't know. We can infer, like, his grandpa has a cane, so maybe there's some health issues. And the fact that Harvey, like 10 chapters ago, said, oh, I need to try so hard for my grandpa, and I need to do well for him, which is interesting because he, like, in trying to do well for him, he was spying for the Phantom Scythe.
I wonder if the grandfather knows, and that's why he's saying, I told you not to, basically, and you didn't have to. I wonder if, to me, it seems like he knew, and he knew that this was a very possible outcome.
Could be.
Maybe that could be a reason why he blames himself for it, because if Harvey went into it trying to get what he needed for his grandpa, the grandpa might feel just a sense of responsibility, like, I did this is because of me.
I also suspect that maybe Harvey's parents might not have been around. Maybe his grandfather raised him, because it seems like A is very close to him and we don't see his parents. So I kind of assume that maybe his grandfather raised him because something happened to his parents.
Maybe. Oh, I wonder if his parents were involved or, like, passed away in the train incident 10 years ago. Maybe, because Harvey doesn't seem that old. He seems fairly young.
Yeah, I think he was, the file said he was 26, I think. So
I would find it very hard to believe that he would join the Phantom Scythe, though, if they had killed his parents.
That's a good point. So just a quick aside, I recently started a podcast asking moms about their experiences of being a mom. It's called 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝘂𝗍𝗔 about motherhood. And one lady I interviewed talked about how her brother passed away when he was 35 and the grief her mother had. And she's like, it's not the natural order of things. Parents go, then children go. It's not children. A parent shouldn't have to lose their child. It's really devastating. And so that's what this panel reminds me of when Harvey's grandpa is crying. And then especially when he says, this is all my fault. How am I supposed to make it up to you now? The perspective is we're underneath his face. So it's like he's crying on us, the reader. It's so sad. And if we had our volume up, we could listen to the music, which is like another twist of the knife. And my heart is so sad. It really, the track is called White. Oh my gosh, 𝗪𝘂𝗧𝗵, holy moly. It's a masterpiece, and it's so mournful and haunting and really elevates all the emotions in this chapter. As I go through and I see everybody's emotions, it, like, the music just enhances it all. The grief of this grandpa, Lauren's, like, frustration and betrayal and everything in it. What was that?
It's beautifully drawn and very well done.
Yeah. And then, let's see. And then as we continue on, it's a panel of, you can see Kim and you can see Lila. Lila she's like kind of trying to wipe her tears with a tissue or a handkerchief. And
of course,
then
Lila is like the one crying,
Yeah.
She's more emotional. Yeah. I'm not embarrassed.
Yeah. And then we can see Lauren's thoughts, and she's thinking they don't know. You can see Will, his head is bowed. You can kind of see Lucas in the background, his head is also bowed. And then she just says they don't know anything. And she's just kind of disgusted by it. Like the feelings of kind of loss and grief that you'd think she'd be feeling is kind of replaced with betrayal.
Lauren is not capable of integrating the gray yet, because I think we have sympathy for Harvey and we can can imagine that there was something like a reason for him to do what he did, and we can still conceive of him being a good person, but Lauren isn't there yet. And that's like a crucial character part of Lauren that is changing throughout the story, but she so far has not reached that level. She's, like you said, disgusted, and that's a strong emotion. She does not feel the sympathy and grief that she felt before she knew that Harvey was a spy.
Yeah, because before she found out, she had all the sympathy in the world for him. Like she wanted to throw the person who did this in jail. Like she wanted revenge for Harvey. But then as soon as she finds out he was working for the other side, it's like a switch flipped. She's like, she has no sympathy for him anymore. And it just shows how black and white her thinking is. Like immediately, if you have one thing wrong, no, you're done. I have no sympathy for you anymore. That's how it's the character arc that still needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when she was talking about it with Kieran, at first she was like, Kieran said, well, what if it was me? And she said, well, I would not hesitate to kill you. And then after she found out that Harvey was working for the 𝗵𝗲, she was like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I can understand the depth of her betrayal. Well, maybe I can't understand it. I haven't been in that position, but I can empathize, I guess, with it. But like we're all saying, it seems kind of extreme.
Yeah.
And I showed my husband the panel of Lauren, her face when Harvey's grandfather says, Harvey, I'm so sorry. And the panel of her face in that spot. So my husband doesn't read this. And so I was like, what do you think her expression says in this panel? And he said, maybe it's like a look of fear, determination. And then after I told him a little bit of context, he was like, I don't know, empathy, sympathy. So I think the fear and the determination is like really spot on, and it's just another like tribute to the art in this. Like there's so much emotion conveyed in this one facial expression. It is also like frustration, disgust, shock, confusion. There's so much that we can interpret in her and how she might be feeling here.
Yeah, even that first expression looks horrified and disgusted.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put your lips the way she is, that's what you get, that feeling like that.
Yeah. And then she continues by thinking, he betrayed all of us. And then it looks like she's kind of like, from an outsider's perspective, it looks like she's wiping tears away, but it just kind of looks like she's trying to keep her cool. And then she's thinking, and yet we're standing here mourning the death of a traitor. And then you can see she has her hand in a fist. She's shaking with anger.
She's a hothead.
Oh yeah.
That's very strongly to things. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. She just has very quick reactions and very strong reactions.
Mm-hmm. It's not like I just find it so interesting how easily she can just flip her perspective on someone. Just like, I can understand her feeling betrayed. Like I can completely understand that, but just to have no sympathy whatsoever anymore, and just all you can feel is anger, not even a hint of sadness, is just interesting.
But I just thought of a great name for like what the book should be called, what the story should be called after Lauren achieves like her character arc. I think it should be called 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh goodness.
Sorry.
And then like, as you can see her fists like shaking, you can see Kim and Lila in the background. They're kind of looking over to her, and she's just thinking, we trusted Harvey. And then it cuts to them, and Lila says to Kim, poor Lauren, she seems really upset by his death. And it's just like, Well, yes, but actually no.
For different reasons than you think. Yeah, they're really worried
Yes.
about her. Yeah.
Just Lauren tries so hard to be subtle, but she's not at all. Like,
She's not.
she's not subtle in the slightest. Meanwhile, Lauren is she's losing her cool at this point. She's just like, we trusted him all this time. You can just see she's starting to get very rage filled. And then it kind of cuts. You can see the trees again. And then you see everyone walking out of the graveyard.
Before we continue, as I was reading this, I was noticing the pacing of Lauren's thoughts. And I think it just emphasizes what we're all saying here. They don't know. And I just imagine like the surge of hormones, the surge of emotion that she's feeling. They don't know. And she can't even like think. She can't finish that thought right away because she's like so filled with emotion. She's so angry. She's so frustrated. Anything. And then another surge of emotion. And then she has that. And then he betrayed all of us, and like another surge of emotion. It's like it takes a while for her to finish her thought and to like think through these things because she's just like can't think. She's just so filled with emotion. And yet here we are, blah, blah, blah. Another surge of emotion. We trusted Harvey. Another surge. She's like, there's these big pauses between the thoughts. She just can't think straight. She's so mad.
And another reason why she's so just mad, and another reason why she's so mad is that it's not just that he betrayed everyone. It's she can't tell anyone. She has no proof. Besides, and if the proof she does have, it would incriminate her. So she can't say anything to anyone.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, she just has to stand there and pretend that he was in her mind, a righteous person who did nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's probably so frustrating for her. And because one way of releasing emotion is to talk about it, right? Is to process it with somebody, but she can't do that.
No, she has
Kieran.
Yeah,
That's
except for
true.
Kieran, and she doesn't want to do anything with him.
Right.
Right.
No, yeah.
Oh, poor Lauren. And then as they're walking out of the church, Lauren's kind of heading in the opposite direction. And then Will turns to her and says, "Aren't you coming with us, Lauren?" And she turns to him and says, "I'm sorry, I can't. I have something important to do. I'll see you guys later." And then kind of beelines it out of the graveyard. And then he just kind of looks after her with just, it's probably concern. It's like,
Yeah.
again, Lauren, as subtle as ever.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Will, like, at first he says, "Aren't you coming with us?" But she says, "No, I have to go." But he doesn't question her. He just looks after her, just watches her go. And I know they're really good friends. So it's just an interesting dynamic of their relationship that he doesn't like, "Oh, where are you going?" He doesn't ask anything else. I don't know. Maybe he can tell that right now is not a good time to push.
That, and I think another reason. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think another reason is that I think it's an unspoken thing that they both know that each of them has walls up that they haven't broken in their relationship, so it's just kind of something that's like, that's your thing. I'm not going to press on it.
Yeah, I don't think Will is also the kind of person who pushes people. I think he is like a hands-off kind of guy.
Yeah. Definitely.
So then we see a panel of what we learn is the Tower of Ardhalis, and it's tilted. It's not like a straight on perspective. So it's kind of as if Lauren is looking at it like this with her head tilted to the side. And then we see in the next panel, Lauren is inside and she's filling out some paperwork. And it wasn't until this panel when I was reading through it that I realized that the rest of the episode was so gray. because here we see there's lots more warm colors, more color variety. Everything else previous was like different shades of gray, basically, because it was outside and it was overcast and also really somber. But it's dark inside the tower, probably because it's overcast outside, but also because, you know, Lauren's mood is dark right now, I'm guessing. And she's filling out an inmate visit form. And we see a panel of her face, and she's looking very intently at the paper. And we see that she is wanting to visit the convict Harry Anslow, which she visited as Loon. And did you have something to add?
Yeah, and I was like, surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. She thinks all my years of research led nowhere because of this guy, and she thinks of the paperwork that Fleming's had on Harvey and how Harvey was a spy for the 𝗵𝗲𝗃, and we learned that he turned in 34 reports on the 11th precinct, which is, I don't know how long he worked. Let's see, since March 23rd, and what is it now?
It's when I say it's the 27th.
Like November 27th.
Yeah, it's
Well,
it's
actually,
the
2 months
December.
now. Yeah, because it's 2 months since November, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I find it interesting how she pins all my years of research led nowhere because of this guy, but in reality, most of the blame is not on Harvey because he's only been in service for a year. So, like, honey, I hate to break it to you, but almost nothing, like, most of your roadblocks were not caused because of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, like, she is not being rational at this point. And like, that's also explains why she's so angry. And there's somebody says a certain something to her later, and you can already see it. It's hinted at here, where her concern is not just, you know, criminals getting away, but her first concern is personal. He blocked me from getting information. And then, you know, if you keep on reading, you'll see like how it really is personal.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. That harkens back to the beginning of the story when Kieran and Lauren first met, and he was like, oh, this is more than just your duty as a police officer. This is personal for you. And she was like, oh crap, I gave myself away. Mm-hmm.
So easily too, yeah.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yeah. And then I think she has a little bit more of a rational thought after that. She says, or she thinks, spies like him make sure the police can't touch the 𝗵𝗲𝗃. So she can recognize a little bit that it's not all just Harvey. It's all the 𝗵𝗲𝗃 plants in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a panel of case unsolved, like several files of case unsolved. All those dropped cases and suspected criminals let free. No wonder. And it has, she thinks of the suspect 𝗵𝗃𝗁, specifically, police arrest suspect 𝗵𝗃𝗁. They let criminals walk the streets freely. And it has a picture of what we would assume is 𝗵𝗃𝗁, and we can see that he's lying. We can't see what he's saying, but we can see the text is in red. So Lauren knew that he was lying. But Harry Anslow knows something, and it goes back to the picture that she got from Harry Anslow, and it has the date November 13th. And that was the date of the train station tragedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he had that photograph for a reason. I will finally be able to see Anslow tomorrow. And she has a flashback of when she and Kieran were interrogating Anslow, and she was showing him the picture. Why do you have this photograph? And so she is planning to visit him on December 22nd at 7:30 p.m., which I think is supposed to be the next day, right?
Yeah.
Also from here, we see that for sure the timeline doesn't work because Blakesley or whatever, or so it just said that it's, you know, been 2 months since Loon has been operating, and then the episode starts out like the 𝗵𝗲𝗃 the story starts out on like the 17th of November. So
it's just like a month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you count it together, it'd be 2 months, but in total, it's only been like maybe at most like it's been a little over a month.
Yeah.
And then also, like, it's very quick because they say on the file that his execution day was the 20th, but then if she's scheduled to meet him the next day, then it'd be the 21st. They had that funeral really fast.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's
then-
not normally the next day.
It's funny.
Yeah,
I'm
and then
Jewish,
also,
so we bury people the same day that they die. So this is like totally normal to me.
oh, yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
See, I'm just questioning, like, I'm trying to picture it in my head because, like, right after she found Harvey's body, like the night, like the evening after the incident, like this is the same day she went to Kieran, and then they had to talk, and then he pulled out the disguise she's supposed to wear, and I'm like, was that the same night? I thought it was gonna be like the next day, but like he said, like. But then he said Ryan Flemings was returning in a couple days. So I'm like, hold on. My brain doesn't compute this.
Doesn't match. It's just
I don't know.
You've seen Webtoon Hattie's video, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there I learned, and we're so confirmed. The dates do not match. Have you seen it, Laura?
Mm-mm.
So Webtoon Hattie on Instagram posted this 20-minute video, and a current with the timeline all the way up to when she made the video, and it's basically going through everything, and it's fantastic because it shows that like it just can't fit. It's really funny.
I have so I understand that we as readers are like really can pick up on stuff like this, especially if we reread it over and over again. But I imagine as the creators, it's hard to keep track of stuff like that because they're like trying to just make it and like not worried about little stuff like that may feel like not as consequential a detail. So FNF, you're doing great. Just keep it up.
We'll fix the timeline ourselves. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't know that it's necessarily super important to have it. Anyway. So Lauren continues thinking, I won't leave until I get my answers. And we see that she has finished filling out the paperwork. And she continues thinking, now that there's no one left to get in my way. And we see this super intense shot of Lauren. She kind of looks like a snake, honestly, like her face and her eyes. And she like, oh man, she looks ready to strike.
Mm-hmm. No, she like, especially the stance she has, it's like her arms are crossed here. She's like leaning against the desk. It's like, oh, that's a power move right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of in the shadows too. It's a lot darker of a panel, like,
yeah,
I guess to indicate her dark intentions. I don't know, but she is very intense. Yeah.
And I think like that last phrase, now that there's no one left to get in my way, it kind of just goes to show how she's not thinking rationally right now, because like, okay, she wants her answers from Anslow. Like, all right, cool. Problem is with that, if there's a log of her going to see Anslow and then she's asking him all these questions, she's gonna blow her cover. Like,
she's blinded by her passion blinds her. She cannot think rationally.
Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. That's a really good point. Hello, Lauren. My word.
like, I understand you want answers, honey, but I don't know what's going on in your brain right now. It's like, is this what they mean? Like, I know some people at funerals, like those, like at funerals, they tend to see like, this is my time to seize life, and it's like, please think rationally for a second. I don't know.
But she's also so single focused. She's like she has like tunnel vision right now. She thinks that she does think that there's no one left to get in her way. And so she's setting herself up for disappointment if there is someone that comes up in her way. Like she is a very all or nothing person. And
and that the last phrase is just very foreboding, because it's like if someone ever says that explicitly, there's no one left to get in my way now, there's always something that they've forgotten. There's always.
That's like the foreshadowing. I wonder what will happen next. Nothing will get in your way, Lauren. Of course not.
Nothing at all. Yeah, I tend to think of this episode as it's like like the beginning, it's very heavy and very just kind of emotion filled, but then I feel like it's a little bit of a setup, because it's like, it's the vibe itself, it is emotion filled, but it's kind of just like mellow in the grand scope, so it just feels very like kind of setup episode for something, like something's gonna hit the fan.
Especially with that last panel.
Yeah.
And then if we scroll down past the let's make it spicy, the author's note, the creator's note, me and my editor discussing about including grandpa in the scene. Editor, more obvious cameo? Me. Yeah, if we have more space, I'll make him talk. Editor, OMG, cruel. Me, thanks. Editor, you're welcome. It was a compliment. Me. That's why I said thank you. I wouldn't say cruel. It was just very heart-wrenching.
Yeah, cruel is the making us cry. Although actually I disagree. I think that crying is very useful and can be very cathartic.
True.
Anywho, do we have final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah. Final thoughts, just I'm prepared for something to go wrong.
Well, we already know what happens, but yeah.
Yeah. Just final thought, Lauren's emotions are overrun.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I first read Purple Hyacinth, I didn't see any of Lauren's flaws, and that's because I love Lauren. Like Lauren, there's a lot of things about Lauren that like I have. I'm very also like bold and emotional and passionate, and I don't know if impulsive is the right word, but like fast decision making, I guess. So I love people like Lauren. I love people who are very action oriented and passionate and like want to do things. So I didn't see her flaws until people pointed them out, and now like they're so obvious. But it's cool to me how you can still appreciate a person so much, even with their flaws. And sometimes even their flaws are appealing. I don't know about you, but I feel like flaws like these are good. Like they're appealing to me because they reflect, you know, a personality that I like.
Yeah. No, because like flaws are what makes people human. So I'd rather have a character who's very flawed than one that doesn't have any. So.
Also, everyone can tolerate different flaws. Like there are certain flaws that they're not my thing. I cannot tolerate them. But this is the kind of flaw that like I can handle and I appreciate, you know.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people love Lauren, and like personally I love Lauren as well, but I know a lot of people are constantly frustrated with her because of this flaw that she has tendency to rush into things without thinking.
Yeah, she is often short-sighted. Like she's trying to get the bigger picture, and she's been trying to get the bigger picture for years, for a decade, but she sometimes has a hard time thinking outside the moment. Like you said, she's kind of impulsive, and like going to talk to Anslow like maybe will be in the short term satisfactory for her, but in the long term like could be really, like you said, expose her as loon. What the heck. Yeah. I guess my last final thoughts is that like when I first read through the first couple times I read through this chapter, I didn't really think super hard on it, but because I knew I was talking to you ladies about the chapter, I had to think about it more, and I did not expect myself to cry. And it just goes to show like how affecting art can be, you know, how important it is. So even though this may feel like not as consequential in the grand scheme of the story, is still important and really beautiful, this episode.
Oh yeah, because I remember when I first read this episode, it felt very set up to me, so I didn't think about it too much, but looking back on it, it has something to it, which I like.
Thank you so much for coming on and for doing this episode. And yeah, I was expecting it to be short, but turns out there was, you know, a reasonable amount to talk about. Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing your insights as always.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Good night.
All right, you too. Good night.